Good morning, good morning, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you may be. I am JaiDei Jackson, and I have my colleague, Dr. Natasha Lamore of the Wife Inc. And today we will be talking about triangulation in relationships. And this is a very timely topic in that we never think about triangulation. And first, I want to talk about what it looks like. So it looks like when we bring a third person into our relationship. Sometimes they insert themselves into our relationship, but that's why we refer to it as triangulation. Now, the reason that we would invite a third person into our relationship is so that we can get them to side with us, and thereby we get to control the narrative. We get to control the outcome. When more than one person is in agreement with us, then that causes us to think that we're right about what's going on. However, I want to just take a moment and have Dr. Lamar, since she does work with couples and that's her area of expertise, relationships, marriage. What is your thoughts about triangulation?
And families, ma'am. No, I'm joking.
Thank
So,
you.
uh, I'm just being funny. So the first thing that is important to understand when we're talking about triangulation, it is a family systems term, right? Terminology that is used for a family system, but it can definitely impact um, relationships that are intimate partner or like siblings or anybody where there's an additional person added into the core relationship. Another thing that is super duper important to understand is that triangulation is considered a dysfunctional thing, right? So when people are triangulating, it's not something that is typically seen as positive because it is actually someone attempting to invite or introduce another person to create this level of balance. And the issue and the dysfunction is a person brings somebody else in due to their lack of being able to advocate for themselves, or like you mentioned earlier, wanting to have someone to side with them so that they can appear to be the majority, right? And it's also a form of manipulation. So that's kind of when I see triangulation, kind of my thoughts and some of the definition behind it. So yeah.
Yeah, and so then the thing that we need to be mindful of, because I recognize that it happens with sometimes when we're children, and our parents can bring us into their relationships. And sometimes we, as children, will insert ourselves into our parents' relationships. And even though we won't say anything, we have this feeling about what's going on in their relationship. And we may even begin to align with one parent over the other parent without really understanding and knowing the full depth and breadth of what's going on in the relationship. But when a parent deliberately insert their children into their relationship, it creates damage for the child as well, because in that moment children will attempt to protect. They feel that they need to protect their mother or even their father, but I don't know if I see it more with mothers than I do with fathers, but I do know that there's this desire to protect a parent from emotional harm or definitely physical harm. And the parent is not aware of the damage that it's creating for the child, in that one of the things that I've noticed is anxiety. A child then has this level of anxiety that they're not even aware of. And of course, as they get older, they're wondering why are they always anxious, and it's almost as if they are not able to mature and go on in their life because they're dealing with, well, what's going to happen to my mom? I need to be there for my mom. I need to protect my mom. I have worked with women who have talked about when my mom doesn't have any friends and I need to be her friend. So that's, and they feel responsible for their mom emotional well-being, her mental well-being, her spiritual well-being. So thereby it creates it's not even interdependence. It creates from my perspective, an imbalance in this parental child relationship. What are your thoughts about that?
So I'm sitting here thinking, and I'm like, I don't know. So I'm just gonna tell you what's on my mind, what I'm thinking. So I hear that you're talking about triangulation, but I feel like the definition that you're giving is enmeshment, right? When a person is so consumed with what's happening with a family member, and you were talking about a mother and a daughter. To me, it doesn't really sound like triangulation. It sounds like enmeshment, and so I want to be clear. Yeah, I don't know. So back to enmeshment, because that's what it sounds like to me.
Hmm.
Enmeshment is also a negative. It's a negative form of you, where you don't know where you end and where the other person begins, and it's so important for us to create like this identity of ourselves, and also what it looks like within the family, in order to have like a healthy sense of self, and to be able to develop as this healthy person. And you were speaking about the anxiety, which is absolutely right. And this is what I think a lot of people miss about anxiety. So, anxiety is a human natural emotion. We all experience anxiety. Different people processes it different, right? Some people manage it different, so it may look different from person to person. But a lot of people think that, well, not a lot, but some of the people that I talk to think that anxiety is this negative thing. But anxiety is actually this cue of this alarm system that's letting us know that something is happening, and then depending on how you learned to manage your emotions, ultimately as a child, determine how you manage those emotions as an adult. So that's kind of the difference between my understanding of triangulation and enmeshment.
Okay. So in that regards, you're absolutely right. Because as I heard you distinguish enmeshment and triangulation,
Mhm.
I need to definitely be clear about triangulation is pulling someone
Mhm.
into the relationship that, excuse me, that was on the outside of it. So when I think about back to the parental children relationship, the parent is pulling the child into the relationship.
Mhm.
Yeah. When they're asking the child to take sides, when they're um, when the father or the husband does something, and then the mother wants the child to side with them to see that the father is doing something that they disapprove of or that they think is wrong, and where enmeshment is. And if you can give us that definition again of enmeshment, please.
So when you think about enmeshment, it's like when you're so intertwined and you're so connected, and this is not a positive thing, right? Because you should have your individual identity of who you are and how you show up. And so when you think about enmeshment, it's actually a relationship within a system where the person is not responsible technically, but they're responsible for how the person think and or feel, or how they believe, or how they move, or when they hurt. So there's no individual identity. It's like one big person. And an example that I like to share is, think of a mother and a daughter, which drives me to this next point, right? And I'm going to hit that in a second. Think of a mother and a daughter, and the mother can't do anything without the daughter, and the daughter can't do anything without the mother. Like, they go out together, they share the same friends, they share intimate things that an adult parent or an adult mother would share with her friends. She shared it with her daughter, and the same things. And I'm talking about sexual exploits. And I'm not saying that a daughter can't talk to her mom about her, sexual experiences, but the mama talking to the daughter about her sexual experiences and her fears and all of these things. That's that enmeshment where the two are one, as if they were married. Now that was a joke, but the point that I wanted to get to was, and I was talking about this the other day, emotional incest. Right?
Mm.
And when I think of emotional incest, or when people think of emotional incest, sometimes people are like, oh my gosh, that is so inappropriate. And this is the thing. The reason I brought it up, because emotional incest has nothing to do with sex, right? It has to do with depending on your child to get your emotional needs met. And that is typically a relationship, mother, daughter, father, son, daughter, father, are enmeshed. Can also have that emotional incest where the mom is, the mom or the dad is looking, to the child for emotional support. I give an example: a mother and a son. The son is an adult and he finds a partner, and the mother hates the lady for whatever reason, like she's not good enough, or the mom feel like she's losing her spot, or the mom feel like she can't this, or the mom, right? That is considered emotional incest, where she's asking the son to do things and she's demanding that the son put her in a place where I'm your mama and I should be first. That's that emotional incest, and that's a lot of that enmeshment that I was kind of talking about earlier. So yeah.
Okay. So then when I'm hearing the difference between triangulation and enmeshment is that there's this over connection, and it seems as if it's an inappropriate connection where it's all right to be connected to a parent, but it's when someone is getting their emotional needs met from their children that's inappropriate. Where with triangulation, there's this need to control. And so the person is pulling someone in to control the narrative and to control, to maintain their control within the relationship, or if it's an argument, or if it's a belief or whatever. Okay, so that's important. And I like what you said about emotional incest. Like, oh,
Yeah.
so what do you do when you recognize that you have been engaging, either you as a parent have been engaging in emotional incest, or you as a child have been the victim of emotional incest? How do you create? Because now I'm thinking that there's a boundary that is not, there's a lack of a boundary somewhere in there.
Right. Right. That's the first thing. The most important thing is understanding that there's a boundary. But this is the other thing, right? People, when you think of emotional incest, the first thing people think of is incest, and it's like, no way, I'm not doing that. But if you are relying on a child, if you are an adult and a parent, and you are relying on a child to get your needs met, and I'm not talking about sexual needs, I'm talking about emotional needs. If you're wanting your child to be your support, like I hear mom say, now you the man of the house now, and he's 7. Like, no, he's not the man of the house. He's a child of the house. Or you my son, or you my daughter. As a dad, you're going to always be my daughter. If anything happened to you, you can always depend on me. I'm the only man you can trust. That is a lack of boundary. And the truth of the matter is, hopefully, if you've parented your daughter correctly, she should be able to trust her husband. And you should be teaching that she should trust her husband. So when you think about it, it kind of goes back to that level of dependency. I've and I know you asked the question, what can you do? And I want to go back to that, because I was about to give an example of even what it looks like with a father and a daughter, him depending on his daughter instead of leaning on his wife, like telling her, I'm sad, and I'm trying to be a good husband to your mama. She just won't let me. And I'm responsible for this and I'm responsible for that. But you, baby, you love me. Don't nobody else love me, but you are the one that love me. And what happens is sometimes the child begins to feel like, oh my gosh, I'm a daddy's girl, right? And my dad loves me so much. And then there's this negative thing where that's when the triangulation can come in. So now it's father and daughter against mom. So now they're looking at mom like, you two-headed monster that's tearing this family apart, and so on and so forth. And so that is the difference between that triangulation and enmeshment. But the first thing that needs to happen is you need to identify first, why am I seeking to create a relationship with my daughter or my son that negatively impacts the relationship that my daughter or son has with their mom or dad or with my partner? So first looking at that, because I'm gonna tell you something, some parents are offended and don't even realize that that's what's kind of happening. So first I would say identifying that it's happening, and then the need for it to happen to make a change.
Okay. That's very good information to be
Yeah.
mindful of, is recognizing the need for it to happen so that you can begin to create, I guess, a pause so
Right.
that then you can then implement healthy boundaries.
Right. That's what it goes back to. It goes back to those healthy boundaries. And you said that first. When you have unhealthy boundaries, you have unhealthy relationships across the board, period.
Ooh. That's our tagline. Unhealthy boundaries, unhealthy relationships.
Ooh, yeah.
Well, that's it for today. Thank you for tuning in. Once again, I am Jadea Jackson at You Are Worthy and Dr. Lamar at The Wives Inc. And we'll see you on the next go.
Bye.
Bye.